speaking of ideas, so obviously the big news this week, or part of it, has been the series of anti-abortion, anti-choice laws that have been passed, really over the past 2 or 3 weeks, right? We've seen one in Ohio. We've seen one in Georgia, now in Alabama. Alabama's the most extreme one. I want to just caution people a little bit about making this exclusively about the failure to exempt women from this law and doctors from this law because of rape or incest, because the real problem is that there is any prohibition against women having sovereignty over their own body. And at the very least, I guess you could say about that law is that at least it is not, it's consistent. I mean, clearly you do not pass a law like this unless on some level you perceive a woman's role, primary role, to be an incubator for potential children. And so whether they have conceived by choice, by accident, by rape, it really is irrelevant to these people. And because they perceive women fundamentally, and I do mean that word literally, because it is a fundamentalist Christian and religious, in some religions, other religions as well, view that their primary reason for existence is to be able to have God create babies through them. And so, I see people out there critiquing the law, and obviously it from a political standpoint, it has some expediency, but I'm not convinced that, part of the idea here is one that we've seen from Republicans and conservatives for frankly, for a couple of decades, that either by design or by just simply by result, that certain things are normalized because of how extreme the Republicans and the conservatives have become in attempting to push, in some instances, their theocratic views of government upon the rest of us. And in some instances, their, I guess, equally market fundamentalist views on us as well. But we should not normalize the idea of banning abortion, even if there is an exemption for women who have been raped or are the victim of incest, or because their lives are in jeopardy. The fact of the matter is that it is not, the fetus is not a person. And our laws govern persons. God's law may govern life, and God may have chosen to say, okay, it's okay that the four-legged life, they can be eaten. The plant life, they can be eaten. And the people who have committed certain crimes, they can be killed. And, of course, we can kill people in war. We can kill people by overcharging for medications that could prevent their death. But I'm going to intervene here. I mean, we're not responsible as a civil society to maintain the perspectives, particularly in this country. In most countries, it seems to be the case as well. But we're not responsible to maintain other people's notion of what God's law is. Other people themselves can decide if they will abide by what they perceive as God's law and whether they perceive that God exists. But we live in a civil society. Life is not protected in our society. We can just look around and see that. That is a principle. Persons are protected. And who we deem to be a person at various times has changed in our society. Right? I mean, We know that slaves were not persons 200 years ago in this country. They were sub-person. And this is what you see with the attempt with fetuses to turn them into persons. But it is problematic to do so. And that is why it's so difficult for them to pass these laws and have them work. Because when you have a person whose existence depends on another person so intimately, then all of a sudden you get conflicts that are unresolvable by civil law. So, I mean, that is, I just want to just make a note of that. It's just a bit of a pet peeve. I understand from a political perspective, it makes it, there's a certain expedience to it. But I'm afraid that it's setting up an opportunity on the Supreme Court for the compromise to be, we're going to allow exemptions for rape and incest as a federal law. But I think, there is more and more sense that the political wing of the conservative movement is going to push the judicial wing, maybe even faster than they had themselves anticipated. But we shall see. In the meantime, as the extremeness, and really this, I think, people are starting to realize, because we don't have a huge amount of people, certainly none who could get pregnant at this point, who lived in an era when abortion was illegal. And I think there are many gains that we've made in society that later generations begin to just sort of take for granted. And now I think there's starting to become a little bit more focus as we get closer to a time where, without doubt, there's going to be a continued curtailment, not just even from a practical sense, but from a legal sense of the right of women to have sovereignty over their own body. And we're starting to see the implications of that, or starting to see the, to be able to more clearly imagine the implications of that. And it's not just, obviously, that abortions are illegal in certain states. Some states are passing laws that says it's illegal to cross state lines to get an abortion. It's not just that abortions are going to be illegal, exempted with rape and incest. That's possible. That's going to go away. But also, we're going to be losing. There's also a whole host of health issues that are involved in this, because you have laws that start to say, like, well, how do we know it was an abortion as opposed to
miscarriage.
A miscarriage, right? I mean, how if it is illegal for an abortion, but a miscarriage and an abortion look very similar in terms of the end product, you're going to start having to, as a woman, register your miscarriages. But how are you going to register miscarriages unless you register your pregnancies? I mean, there's a whole host of things that are involved in this that are going to start coming a little bit clearer as we get closer to this moment, and maybe won't be totally clear until we get to the other side of it.